WMGH-FM, Tamaqua, Pottsville, Hazleton, Lehighton.
Magic 105.5.
You're listening to Magic 105.5, WMGH-FM, Tamaqua, Pottsville, Hazleton, Lehighton. The following is a public service program brought to you by the Lehighton 912. The following views and opinions do not reflect those of the station's ownership, management, and staff. Celebrating 25 years of magic and getting ready for the Pennsylvania Primary 2012. This evening's panel are the candidates for the 29th Senatorial District. Live from the WMGH studios, here is this evening's moderator, Carrie Dowd.
And good morning. Welcome to our local coverage, first here on Magic 105.5 for the Senatorial 29th District here in Pennsylvania. It is my pleasure and honor to have my special guests here in studio. I'll start with introductions briefly, and then I will go over exactly how this panel is going to take place this evening. First of all, we have our Republican Senator incumbent, Dave Argel, is here. Also, his challenger, who is also a Republican, Brian Rich. And lastly, we have Tim Sipe, who is the uncontested Democrat, whose name will be on the ballot come this November. So, gentlemen, welcome, and thank you so much for coming in this evening. The rules for the panel this evening will be as follows. We'll have a 2-minute introduction for each of the candidates, and then we will go right to questions. At some point later on in the broadcast, we will open up the phone lines to our listeners and to the voters of the area of the 29th District. I encourage you to please, if you have a question, you're more than welcome to call, and that number is 570-622-WMGH or toll-free 800-326-9574. And I'd also like to say a huge thank you and big support from the Lehighton 912 group, who is sponsoring this broadcast this evening. Unfortunately, their representative could not be here because they have a guest speaker from the Philadelphia area, but we will be hearing more from the Lehighton 912 group, and you can learn more as we take breaks throughout the evening. So we are going to start first, and right now we're going to start with Senator Argel. You have 2 minutes for an introduction, Senator.
Thanks, Carrie. To you, to WMGH, and to the Lehighton Area 912 group for pulling this all together. This is really a significant public service that you're doing tonight. The job of state senator in the 29th Senate District in Schuylkill County and Carbon County and Lehigh, Northampton, Monroe, and Berks. Understand this is a district that's larger than the state of Rhode Island, and so it comes with a significant responsibility. In my office in Tamaqua, in my other offices, the focus is on solving problems large and small. I've been doing it now for 3 years as a state senator. I did it previously as a state representative. But it's not just about the individual complaints. It's not just what people might consider to be a small concern. It's also about working on larger issues. I'm proud of my role in working with Tide, working with SEDCO, working with so many volunteers and local governments to bring new jobs to places like the Hometown Industrial Park. It wasn't too many years ago there were no jobs in the industrial park in Hometown. Today, over 500. We've been able to do that to kind of work in each of the 6 counties. We've seen the, I think, remarkable turnaround in downtown Hamburg and downtown Tamaqua, working with a lot of people to be able to bring new jobs to places like downtown Tamaqua, along with a new source of revitalization. Also, how many people have noted again and again and again, I think, the new spirit of vitality up in the south ward of Tamaqua, which was not too many years ago a vacant, dilapidated old junior high school. Today, because of my work, because of the work of a lot of people, a brand new community college. That wouldn't have been predicted 20 years ago. That is literally the site where people's lives are changing every day. So whether it's on the big issues, whether it's on the small issues, whether it's on trying to resolve some way to change, to eliminate our school district property tax, to fight blight in our larger communities and smaller communities, those are the kind of issues that get me excited. That's why I'm running for a second term, and I'd like to thank you for having us tonight.
All right, Senator, thank you so much. Brian, your turn.
Well, Carrie, thank you. Carrie, I've been compelled to run for this because Well, I'm a husband and father to a businessman, and I've had a career in Schuylkill County of 29 years where, when I started my career in 1983, Schuylkill County imported 100% of its electricity. Today, Schuylkill County's single largest export, and the 29th district's single largest export, in fact, is energy. When we started, we had about 100 employees. Today, our family, we employ about 620. So we've had terrific success in the energy business in our community. But what's troubling for me is that Schuylkill County in the 29th district is in a state of chronic unemployment, despite our efforts. Pennsylvania is 46th in job growth in the nation. It's dead last in business climate. Over the last 27 years under Dave's watch, we've seen state government grow by 300%, from $9 billion budget to a $29 billion budget. We've seen, and during that same period of time, we've only seen Pennsylvania GDP grow by 30%. So what we really have, we have a chronic unemployment problem, and as a proven job creator, I intend to tackle that as our primary focus. So despite the successes of our company, we still have this chronic unemployment problem, and I think it rests at the feet of our legislators who've overregulated us. When I was a kid, the most inspirational thing for me was the space program. President Kennedy said we're going to land a man on the moon before the end of the decade. Today, we can't even get a bridge built across a stream in 10 years in Pennsylvania. And I think that sits and rests, that unfortunate reality rests at the feet of our current legislators, and that has to change. If Pennsylvania wants to be restored as an employer and a job-growing community, we need to reduce our regulatory environment, and that's what I'm here to do.
All right, Brian, thank you so much. Tim?
Thank you, Carrie. I've really spent a good part of my life, and certainly my professional career, in helping people. Children, families, veterans, students, older Pennsylvanians, the blind and the visually impaired, and patients at the hospital that I worked at who are battling illness. I've been very fortunate in my life to be able to obtain the experience and the professional training to really help people overcome astounding obstacles in their lives: medical problems, mental illness, unemployment, physical disabilities, academic concerns, housing issues, financial crises. I remember when I was in the House of Representatives, there was a man in Berks County who is in federal prison today because he engaged in some underhanded and illegal mortgage practices and really violated those people's trust. And I was happy to be able to step in and try and help them as their state representative. When I was in the General Assembly, I was in a unique position to help people. One of the positions, one of the things that's very unique for a social worker, a position very unique to be in as a social worker. And although I'm personally in a good situation now, being a faculty member at Kutztown University, I feel very compelled to serve all of those people out there who feel like no one has an interest in their situation or wants to do the job to make their lives better. During my 2 terms in the General Assembly, I never missed one session day, I never missed a floor vote, and I did all that while I was championing the issues that my constituents identified as the most important: property taxes, transportation and infrastructure, jobs, and energy, certainly the Marcellus Shale, which I feel has been miserably mishandled by the General Assembly that we currently have in place. To address all of these issues, I respectforly asked everyone in the 29th Senate District for their vote. And for more information about my campaign, you can go to www.siteforsenate.com.
All right, thank you so much. All right, gentlemen, we're going to take a couple of prepared questions, and then we will open it up to the phone lines. Again, you are more than welcome to call in throughout this hour. The number again is 570-622-WMGH or toll-free 800-326-9574. Brian, I'm going to start with you. And a couple of the topics that we are going to try to touch upon this evening are education, jobs and employment, and also the future of the 29th Senatorial District. So, Brian, I'm going to start with you. One of the questions on the education front, with school districts facing budget cuts from Governor Corbett's budget, is there something that the Senate or you, if you are elected senator of the 29th District, could do to help districts and their unfunded mandates?
Well, Carrie, my focus has been solving the problem for our school districts in a different sense. I think currently we have an unfunded pension obligation. That unfunded pension obligation is the root cause of our underlying school district property tax issues. It's also the underlying cause for our budget cuts currently for our school districts. So the first thing we need to do in Pennsylvania is solve our pension crisis, and that pension crisis is the first and foremost critical issue for me. It turns on the 25% increase and 50% increase that the legislature passed for state workers and state teachers in 2001. At that same time, the state legislature voted a 50% increase in their own pension. This year alone, that increase has caused a $1.2 billion deficit in our school districts. That's the problem. We have to reform our pension system first and foremost.
Tim, a 1-minute rebuttal.
Well, I think that part of the issue with education, I mean, we've seen Governor Corbett take, with this current budget proposal, he has $1 billion that has been eliminated from the public ed budget over the last 2 years of his administration. And by underfunding those school districts, I think that's where the local property tax issues are being exacerbated. And I think that by taking money out of out of the budgets for younger students and even pre-K programs and Head Starts, I mean, we know that by putting $1 into those kinds of programs, we're going to save 14 down the road. So I think it's kind of a mentality where we've been very penny wise and dollar foolish with our investments in education, and we have to get back to making those investments in math counts and science at elementary, classrooms for the future, all of those kinds of things that are going to prepare our students to compete for jobs in their future.
Senator, 1-minute rebuttal.
This is the, of course, worst recession we've seen since the 1920s. We were $4 billion in the hole last year. And so the legislature took cuts, the Department of Public Welfare took cuts, and yes, sadly, in many cases, education was forced to take some cuts as well. I think one thing that we did that was very smart is that we have put new controls on school board members to essentially say that if you want to spend more than the rate of inflation, whether it's on a funded mandate or an unfunded mandate, you've got to take it to the voters. A lot of other states have done that. I think that's a very important thing that we have done. Because if we don't control the spending, it doesn't matter where the funding comes from. I think also equally important, however, is we need to address the school district property tax. Whether I'm in Schuylkill County, whether I'm in Carbon County, whether I'm up in the Poconos, it's usually the first question that I'm asked. Somehow, some way, we have to find a way to eliminate the school district property tax. I've introduced this bill again. I know that it's failed in the past. I think I voted with Sam Rohr 6, 7, 8 times when I was still in the House. We're going to take another whack at it. We're desperately trying to turn no votes into yes votes. And so if we control the spending and if we can get our educational facilities a better way, a fairer way to fund the public schools, I think we'll all be better off.
All right, gentlemen, we're going to take our first break here in this hour, and we're going to hear from our sponsor for this evening, the Lehighton 912. The phone lines are lit up, and again, you're more than welcome to call in with your questions, either for Senator Argel, Mr. Brian Ridge, or Mr. Tim Sipe, 622-WMGH, or 800-326-9574. Stay tuned. We'll be back with more.
105.5 105.5 It's magic. Magic 105.5 weather.
Your complete auto service center, the Tire Pros in Tamaqua. Get your vehicle ready for summer road trips, and don't forget to get your AC checked. Ask about their brake service special and Bridgestone tire discounts. Gift certificates available. Call 570-668-3212. More than just tires, the Tire Pros Tamaqua. Online at TamaquaTirePros.com.
This is the Magic 105.5 AccuWeather forecast. Partly to mostly cloudy tonight, low 43. Tomorrow some clouds to start, then sunny and milder with an afternoon high of 69. Partly cloudy tomorrow night, low 47. Friday, intervals of clouds and sunshine, warmer, high 74. Remaining mild Saturday, though there could be a couple of showers and a thunderstorm in the afternoon. With the Magic 105.5 AccuWeather forecast, I'm meteorologist Bob Larson.
This evening's broadcast is being brought to you by the Lehighton 912. Their mission is to awaken as many Americans as possible to the slow deterioration of their constitutional liberties that have occurred over the past 100 years. The 912 has 12 core values: honesty, reverence, hope, thrift, humility, charity, sincerity, moderation, hard work, courage, personal responsibility, and gratitude. Please make it your obligation to vote in the Pennsylvania primary on Tuesday, April 24th. For more information on the Lehighton 912, log on to www.lehighton912.org. Now, back to this evening's public service program on Magic 105.5 WMGH.
And welcome back. You're listening to Magic 105.5 and our special community focus on the 2012 Pennsylvania primary for the 29th Senatorial District. I'm the moderator this evening, Carrie Dowd, along with Senator incumbent Dave Argel, Republican candidate Brian Rich, and Democratic candidate Tim Sipe. We are going to go to the phone lines. We do have our very first caller, and it is from Moon Lake, and this is going to Senator Argel. Good evening. You're on with the Senator.
Yes, I have a question for Senator Argel. Under his watch, some Boy Scouts were hit with a stick and beaten, and I was just wondering, he has never addressed that, and also he's not running a campaign that lives up to the Boy Scout code. Is there a reason why?
Well, you're talking to an Eagle Scout who's been very proud and active in the program for a long time. I'm not just a former Scoutmaster, but I worked with a group of kids for a long, long time with the same troop. You're referencing an incident that was, I think, well reported in the local media several years ago. The council came in. They determined that, yes, some of the kids were doing a couple of things they should not have been doing. While I was in Harrisburg, there were some other leaders in charge. The good news is that changes were made. The troop continued at another local church. Several of those boys have gotten their Eagles. Several of those boys have invited me to come and speak on their behalf at their Eagle Awards. The unit is still going strong, and while you may be trying to somehow use this issue for political gain on your own part, I would tell you that if you ask the boys, if you ask the parents, the mothers, the fathers, the grandparents, you would find that I handled the case, I think, with a considerable degree of caution. And at the end of the day, the best thing happened, and that is that the boys were able to stay active in the program, and it's something that they're continuing to be very proud of today.
All right, Brian, do you have a rebuttal on that?
No, I don't, Carrie. That's...
Tim, anything you'd like to add?
No. During my time in the House, I attended a lot of Eagle Scout ceremonies, and I think the Boy Scouts of America have a fine program.
All right, we're going to go now to our next caller from Tamaqua. This is also being directed towards Senator Argel. Good evening, Tamaqua. You're on the air.
Yes, hello. This question is towards Senator Argel. 2005, you conducted and wrote House Bill 1521. For those who don't know, it was your instrument for that pay rise. Your opponent, Brian Rich, is attacking you about it, and instead of answering back, bashing and talking about it. My question to you, Senator Argel, is why have you yet to answer back to this, and why are you hiding from it, and why have you yet to say it back?
We're having some trouble hearing that caller from Tamaqua. Okay, we're going to come back. If Tamaqua was able to get through again, we could not hear you at all. All right, we're going to go now to, this is from Tamaqua as well, and this is directed at all three candidates. We're going to start with you, Tim, this time. And good evening, Tamaqua, you're on the air.
Hi. I was actually wondering what groups or organizations are supporting you this election?
Well, I've been fortunate enough to get the endorsement of PSEA. I've always been a friend of education, and I've also been endorsed by ABSCOF, my union, at the state-owned universities.
All right, Senator.
I've been endorsed by several different groups, including 70 of the affiliated groups that support my bill to eliminate the property tax. That's the Property Tax Coalition. I'm supported by Pro-Life Federation of Pennsylvania. I'm supported by the NRA. I received their endorsement. I've been supported by the state troopers and the corrections officers and the nurses, also by the National Federation of Independent Business for small business, also by the state chamber, which would be small, medium, and larger businesses. And just today we learned that I've been supported by one of the major Tea Party organizations representing several different portions of Pennsylvania. They believe that I have lived up to their conservative ideals, and I'm very, very proud to have received their endorsements. Also, just as far as a few critical local endorsements here in Carbon County, Senator Heffley is strongly supporting my efforts. Of course, in several of the other portions of the district, I also have considerable support by several of my former House colleagues.
Okay, and Brian.
Well, Dave, does that include, maybe the Tea Party would like to know, the AFL-CIO has also endorsed you and contributed to your campaign?
They have not endorsed me, Brian.
Did they contribute to your campaign?
They did prior to this year, yes.
In your last filing, they did as well.
So what's your point?
AFL-CIO as well. How about the teachers union, I believe, as well? I believe that the state employees union as well.
I don't know which one you mean, Brian.
I think it was the state teachers.
They have supported me in the past. They also have been very upset with a couple of my votes. There's no doubt in my mind they will not be endorsing me this year.
But they just did contribute.
Just like you contributed to Ed Rendell.
Well, it's funny that you said that, but you voted for 75% Ed Rendell's budgets.
I wouldn't have had to deal with him if you wouldn't have helped him get elected to office.
Brian, do you have any local or state endorsements for your campaign?
We were endorsed by Pennsylvania Anthracite Council. We were the FOP, excuse me, the FOP locally. We were endorsed by the current Republican candidate for governor of West Virginia. That's about, I don't have the current list, but that's about it.
All right, we're going to go back to the phone lines once again. We have a caller from Tamaqua, and this is for all three candidates. This time we're going to start with you, Brian, and this is Tamaqua. Good evening. You're on the line. You're on the air.
Hi. Actually, I'm going to direct this question right to Brian. Did you ever get a DUI?
I'm sorry, Tamaqua. Can you repeat that question, please?
Actually, I'm going to direct this question to Brian individually. Did you ever get a DUI?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
All right, we are going to move on once again. And, look, I just got to say this, okay? This is something that we at Magic want to do for the community to bring issues to light because it's very important as we go into the Pennsylvania primary come Tuesday. Questions like that are really irrelevant, I feel, because we have bigger issues right now that are facing all Pennsylvanians, especially those of us who are living in the 29th district. And we all have a personal interest in this district. I do, my family does, your families do. So it is beneficial to ask legitimate questions like the one that we started out with education. That is something that is going to make a difference for my children and your children. So let's really try to keep it to a intelligent question, if you will, for all the candidates, if we could just do that. We've got Tamaqua once again on line 3. We're going to try him once again. Good evening, Tamaqua. You're on the phone.
Yes, hello. Can you hear me now?
You're much better, Tamaqua.
All right, thank you very much. This question is actually for Senator Argel. In 2005, you conducted and wrote House Bill 1521. And for those out there who don't know, it was your infamous midnight pay raise. Your opponent, Brian Rich, has been attacking you about it, and instead of you facing the issue, you've been bashing him and alleging untrue facts about him. So my question to you is, why are you hiding from this issue, and why have you yet to pay it back?
I've answered that question a couple of hundred times since 2005, and I'll be happy to answer it again. It passed. I did not write it. Anyone who tells you that I wrote the bill is either a liar or a complete fool who doesn't understand what was going on in Harrisburg in 2005. I did, however, help to lead the repeal. Never collected a nickel from the pay raise. When it passed, I had three choices. I could keep it, which many of my colleagues did. I did not. I could give it back to the House of Representatives, where it would go to the unexpended surplus accounts. I thought, quite honestly, there were better places to send that money for a couple of months until it was repealed than the surplus accounts of the Pennsylvania House of Representatives. So I gave it to the United Way. I think they've taken good care of those dollars. Also, should note that every month when there is a COLA, some years legislators get COLAs, some years they don't, I've given every one of those dollars back to the taxpayer. And so I believe I've been very clear. I have voted against pay increases in the past. In 2005, I made a mistake. I don't think you'll ever see any of us making that mistake again.
All right. Brian, would you like to rebuttal on that?
Well, Dave, you in fact were the author. Your name's
Absolutely
on the
not.
Your name's on the front of that bill.
You look at the sponsor of the bill, you won't see my name on that bill.
Well, that's contrary to everything that's been published in the past.
Brian, do you have a rebuttal on that?
Well, I'm just surprised because that's simply not the case.
You look at the list of sponsors of the bill, I was not a sponsor of the bill.
Well, I can only take what Dave's suggesting here. I have no other other than what we've all seen in the past. Dave's certainly been right in the middle of that. He did vote for it, however.
Yes,
and the
I believe
50%
you've
increase
heard
in
me
your
say
and the
that
50% increase in your pension.
Yeah, and that was 2001. The pension bill helped thousands of people, and you've seen me how many dozen times since 2001, and you never complained about the pension bill until this year?
Oh, that's not true, Dave. That's not true at all. In fact, it's the bane of our society right now. It's the
and
bane.
You never mentioned it until 2012.
Dave, you know that, and I know that that's not the case. This is the bane of our society. We got a $1.2 billion deficit this year alone as a result of the vote that you had in 2001. You said that the actuaries at the time said that we had plenty of money. But Dave, that anybody that has any business background knows that actuaries, those numbers don't always add up. And just what happened to Bethlehem Steel is precisely what's happening to Pennsylvania as a result of the 2001 vote. Currently, right now, Pennsylvania's pension deficit is estimated to be $40 billion when you include all of our state and local and city obligations. It's an untenable position that's causing Pennsylvania to be 46th in job growth and dead last in business climate. And I believe the other day you in fact said that vote was a mistake. I believe you did say that.
That's correct.
That vote that puts us $40 billion in the hole.
But we couldn't have known that in 2001.
All you got to do is look at the history of Bethlehem Steel. That $40 billion deficit that we're faced with today, Dave, is enough to have you get the pink slip. It's breaking Pennsylvania's back, and you know it, but you don't want to address it.
It passed by 170 to 30, and most newspapers didn't even report it. It wasn't a big deal until the stock market crashed, and
the stock market completely recovered back from that level.
No, 80% of the losses is due to the stock market.
The stock market, and you anticipated as a legislator, as an intelligent man, that you anticipated the stock market would continue to climb. And that was what you believed. All you had to do was look at Bethlehem Steel as an example, or General Motors, or all the railroads.
What about the
airlines?
other 49 states that have problems? This isn't just a Pennsylvania issue.
No, in fact, you haven't talked about it, but Rhode Island has reformed their entire pension system away from the defined pension plan, and Rhode Island's now on a trajectory of growth and job prosperity, whereas Pennsylvania is continually struggling to fund our school districts because of it. And property tax reform is poppycock as a result of the vote in 2001. You're talking about property tax reform is poppycock because you've done it for 14 sessions or 14 elections and you haven't succeeded. That is poppycock.
Okay, we're going to move on to Tim. Do you have anything to rebut on this?
Well, I certainly wasn't in the House of Representatives when the pay raise bill was passed, but it is certainly an issue that has captivated a lot of people's attention, and it was certainly something that grabbed my attention at the time, and one of the things that compelled me to run for public office.
All right, gentlemen, we're going to take a break here from callers, and I would like to ask a question of my own. We're going to direct this first with Tim. The Pennsylvania state welfare is a problem for many of the people in the 29th district. There has been talk for many, many years on reforming that. They have made some strides in reform. Of course, one of them is mandatory drug testing. But do you feel that, are we spending money on a welfare reform program that is going to have little or no effect on those that continue to abuse it, who fraudulently apply for it and use it? And is there a way that we could eliminate the welfare program altogether in Pennsylvania?
Well, I think, Carrie, when you say welfare, I think a lot of people try and use that term interchangeably with cash assistance. The welfare program in Pennsylvania, the Department of Public Welfare, oversees an incredible number of programs to include nursing home care, child welfare, to investigate sexual abuse or physical abuse of children. So there are many facets to the welfare budget. And to be very honest with you, in hearings that I was at when I was on the House Health and Human Services Committee, I heard the deputy secretaries and the secretary at the time talk about nursing home care costs, prescription drug costs, and all those things. And the deputy secretary told me that the cash assistance part was about, and this again was in a hearing I was in when I was in the House, so it had to be no later than 2010. At that time, the cash assistance budget for the entire Department of Public Welfare in Pennsylvania was about 5% of their budget. I don't believe that people should be eligible for benefits if they don't qualify for them. I don't think people should be using money to go purchase drugs or do illegal things with that. I think the far broader issue, though, involving fraud, a lot of times revolves around the providers. And I'm not saying every provider is trying to commit fraud. Please, don't mistake me. But there are providers who do commit fraud, and it's not $40 worth of food stamps when they commit fraud. It's millions of dollars that are put in false claims, or those are the things that we really, really should get to the bottom of and try and, if we want to address fraud head on, those are the ones that those are the issues we should be tackling, the larger provider fraud that occurs.
Senator Urgel, would you like to rebut on this?
I think the Department of Public Welfare is in the need of continuing to have its budget reduced. Whether I'm in Schuylkill County, Carbon County, any of the other counties, people are always giving me firsthand knowledge of people who are receiving welfare benefits to which they are not legally entitled. We reduced the budget $400 million last year. We're looking for additional ways to do that. Certainly the program should be there for the people with genuine physical and mental handicaps, but it ought not to be available to people to sit home, able-bodied people, and collect welfare benefits. I'm very proud of the fact that we did, as you had indicated, require drug tests for drug felons who now have to pass a special test before they can collect a welfare check. Quite honestly, I'd like to do that for more welfare recipients in the future. The courts have made that a little bit difficult, but we are working with our legal staff to do just that. It is the largest part of state government according to the budget. I don't think it should be. I'd really like to see it reduced.
And Brian?
The state welfare department has grown from $1.8 billion when Dave was elected to $9 billion today. One third of the state budget, like Dave said. Dave just said that he would require that recipients of welfare that were convicted of a prior drug offense be tested for prior to collecting benefits. I'm puzzled why my employees are all subject to random drug testing. Why not have all welfare recipients subject to drug testing? But the underlying problem for Pennsylvania is the 46th in job growth, and the best solution for welfare is a job. So we need to get Pennsylvania where we belong in terms of job growth. We need people moving here to create job opportunities. When Pennsylvania's corporate income tax is highest in the nation, no CEO in America is going to move to Pennsylvania to create the jobs that we need to get people off of welfare. Now, this all turns on the fact that Pennsylvania is fiscally irresponsible. That fiscal irresponsibility starts with the pension vote in 2001. This is the bane of Pennsylvania. Until it's solved, Pennsylvania is going to continue to have these financial deficits.
All right, gentlemen, we're going to take another break, and we're going to hear from our sponsor for this evening, the Lehighton 912. And if you would like to be on the program, you may do so. The number is 570-622-WMGH, or toll-free 800-326-9574. We will be back with more. Stay tuned.
105.5 WMGH.
This evening's broadcast is being brought to you by the Lehighton 912. Their belief is that we, the people, need to reassert our authority given to us under the Constitution to get our country back on the path that was laid before us by the Founding Fathers and maintain America as the greatest nation that ever existed in the history of the world. The Lehighton 912 has 9 principles. 1. America is good. 2. I believe in God, and He is the center of my life. 3. I must always try to be a more honest person than I was yesterday. 4. The family is sacred. My spouse and I are the final authority, not the government. 5. If you break the law, you pay the price. Justice is blind, and no one is above it. 6. I have a right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, but there is no guarantee of equal results. 7. I work hard for what I have and will share it with whom I want to. Government cannot force me to be charitable. 8. It is not un-American for me to disagree with authority or to share my personal opinion. And 9. The government works for me. I do not answer to them, they answer to me. Please make it your obligation to vote in the Pennsylvania primary on Tuesday, April 24th. For more information on the Lehighton 912, log on to Lehighton912.org. Now, back to this evening's public service programming on Magic 105.5 WMGH.
And good evening. Welcome back to our very special program this evening. We are talking the 29th Senatorial District here coming up on the Pennsylvania primary, which is Tuesday. I do encourage you to please go out and vote. And again, you have to be a registered Democrat or a Republican to do so. But it has been my privilege for the past 40 minutes to be sitting with Senator incumbent Dave Argall, Republican candidate Brian Rich, and Democratic candidate Tim Sipe. We are going to go back to the phone lines once again, and we have Tamaqua, who is on the phone. Good evening, Tamaqua.
Yes.
You're on the air.
Okay. All right. My first question, first of all, I'd like to thank the candidates for doing this. I think it's a wonderful thing, and it shows their willingness to go with some change to get out there in the public and answer these questions. So I do thank you. With that being said, I'd like to direct my first question first towards the Senator, Dave, and then obviously hear the opinion of the potential candidates as well. Dave, you have several times praised Governor Corbett's budget and his finance spending plan, and I believe quoting you, you said that he is the right person to do this, do the spending cuts. Right now, with the 50%, more than 50% cuts in education, as well as the caring of special needs individuals, mentally and physically handicapped people, there's been more than a 50% cut in 2 years of Corbett's plan and on a budget you voted for, while allowing the gas companies and the fracking companies to come in tax-free. You attribute a lot to Governor Rendell's overspending, and that's why the cuts are due now.
we saw in the newspaper today how it is starting to affect and hit home right now in Tamaqua, cutting programs that family members of yours were even involved in the Tamaqua High School. How can you explain supporting that to families who have, like myself, who have 4 children in the public school system, and also I have an uncle with Down syndrome? Why the 50% cuts there as opposed to actual advanced spending in stuff like the prison system?
I'll repeat myself. The state last year was $4 billion in the hole. That was because of the terrible economy. That was because we lost billions of dollars in the federal temporary stimulus program that was never meant to come year after year after year. So we had a choice. We could cut spending or we could raise taxes. There was no way that any of us wanted to raise taxes in the middle of the worst recession since Herbert Hoover. You're incorrect on an additional point. The gas companies are not tax-free. They pay the corporate net income. They pay the sales tax. They pay the property tax. And now they're paying an additional fee on everything that they do in Pennsylvania. It's not the highest tax in the country because, quite honestly, we want the jobs. We want the environmental protection, but we also see that up in little old Bradford County, which is, a third of the size of Schuylkill County, they created more new jobs because of Marcellus Shale than Philadelphia. And so we want that kind of economic development to take place here in Pennsylvania. I am hopeful, and I have stated it many times, that as the economy recovers, I'm hopeful that we can do more for our public schools. I'm hopeful that we can do more for people with genuine needs to be addressed by the Department of Public Welfare. But what drives the people that I represent just literally out of their mind is when they see people receiving welfare benefits which they shouldn't be legally entitled to, and they've also seen some overspending in some of the school districts in the past. As you'd indicated, I had 2 kids who have got a wonderful education at Tamaqua High School. I'm a strong believer in public education, but I understand that when times are tough, everybody, the House, the Senate, the Governor's office, and yes, education, everybody needs to tighten their belt.
All right, Tim.
Okay. Before rebuttal, because this is probably a better way to address it then, something that I know has been looked into, would any of the panel be in support of, or do you think the government could better function? Our current the current budget was $27 billion. Rather than cutting more than 50% from some of the places that hit home with our education and the care of our less fortunate, wouldn't it be more efficient to try and run the government with a 10% cut across the board? Would any of the panel be willing to support that and try and run on a 90% efficiency rather than cutting more than 50% from some of the stronger points that I feel hit home?
All right, let's back up for 1 second. Senator, we'll come back to you. You can answer his part 2 question. I didn't know he was going to do that, so my apologies. Tim, do you want to just rebut on that first part?
On the budget?
Yes.
I think that the problem with the budget is that we have not closed the Delaware loophole. There's a $500 million missing because we haven't closed the Delaware loophole. And if you really want to be honest, there are very, very few companies in the 29th District that would be able to take advantage of the Delaware loophole. We're talking about companies that have teams of accountants and lawyers trying to come up with accounting tricks to back bill themselves for things that they were doing anyhow, to write that off. Meanwhile, business owners on Main Street, Broad Street in Tamaqua here, they don't have teams of accountants. They don't have teams of lawyers trying to pull accounting tricks to get them out of being able to pay taxes to the state. So by closing that Delaware loophole, we could better fund our budget, help people with disabilities, help our students, fund education the right way. And the gas drilling, we're allowing billions of dollars to be shipped out of state back to Louisiana and Texas instead of putting it to work in our state. And it's at the peril of our local taxpayers who are seeing their property taxes raised because the state, with this budget and the one prior to this budget proposal, have continually underfunded the local school districts. So if we could close the Delaware loophole, that's a $500 million right there. If we could put the severance tax that I voted for in 2009 and 2010 that the Senate would not move. The governor at the time, Governor Rendell, would have signed that bill. We could have put in place a 7% effective tax rate, which is very similar to somebody going to the store and buying something and paying 6% on what they buy. I'm not asking the gas growers to do anything extraordinary, just their fair share.
All right, Brian?
Well, Carrie, both of these legislators refuse to talk about the pension system as the bane of the problem, of the core root of the problem. Dave's going to collect $110,000 a year in retirement.
Absolutely wrong. You
What's
keep making that number.
What's the number, Dave?
I don't know, but I know it's not that high. Every time
what
you give
number
this
is it, Dave?
speech, it increases another $10,000.
Well, how much is it?
It's not $110,000.
Is it 100?
I can guarantee you. No, it's not.
When you put your medical benefits, on top of that, what is it?
Well, what does that have to do with it? You also tried to include Social Security one time. Everybody includes Social Security. You also have a staff member who has 3 pensions in their house, but I'm not allowed to get one.
Well,
The person who writes your speeches gets a county pension,
right now,
a
Dave,
state pension, and a federal pension.
My who?
Your chairman of your committee
Gets a what?
A federal pension, a state pension, and a county pension in the same household.
Well, I have no idea what you're talking about. How much is your pension?
I don't know, but I
don't
know when I checked your
when
numbers
you
were
voted
wrong.
for a 50% increase in it, you don't know what it is.
And I helped thousands of people with that bill.
What you're causing is Pennsylvania to be bankrupt as a result of that bill.
All you want to do is scare people.
Well, Pennsylvania is bankrupt. That's what we're talking about.
Pennsylvania's not bankrupt.
Pennsylvania we have a $40 billion pension deficit, Dave. We're going in the same direction as Bethlehem Steel. You've even admitted to being a wrongful vote. You've said that.
Absolutely. And we have taken some steps to change it, but it's not as bad as you want to scare people with.
Dave, if you were to retire today, between your medical benefits and your pension payments, it's over $3 million worth of cumulative benefits. When you spread that across the entire legislature and their staffs, it's over $1 billion, Dave. It's $1 billion just for 300 legislators today. It is the bane of our society. Every private sector worker out there should be outraged that's collecting or contributing to a 401k. We all have to save in a judicious way. You've become a multimillionaire on the back of the taxpayers.
Absolutely not true.
All right, if what's the number? It's 100?
No.
Okay, we're going to take a break, and we are going to come back with our last few callers of the evening. And we're going to hear more words from the Lehighton 912, who is sponsoring this evening's broadcast. Stay tuned.
WMGH.
This is the Magic 105.5 AccuWeather forecast. Partly to mostly cloudy tonight, low 43. Tomorrow some clouds to start, then sunny and milder with an afternoon high of 69. Partly cloudy tomorrow night, low 47. Friday, intervals of clouds and sunshine, warmer, high 74. Remaining mild Saturday, though there could be a couple of showers and a thunderstorm in the afternoon. With the Magic 105.5 AccuWeather forecast, I'm meteorologist Bob Larson.
This evening's broadcast is being brought to you by the Lehighton 912. Their belief is that we, the people, need to reassert our authority given to us under the Constitution to get our country back on the path that was laid before us by the Founding Fathers and maintain America as the greatest nation that ever existed in the history of the world. The Lehighton 912 has 9 principles. 1. America is good. 2. I believe in God, and He is the center of my life. 3. I must always try to be a more honest person than I was yesterday. 4. The family is sacred. My spouse and I are the final authority, not the government. 5. If you break the law, you pay the price. Justice is blind, and no one is above it. 6. I have a right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, but there is no guarantee of equal results. 7. I work hard for what I have and will share it with whom I want to. Government cannot force me to be charitable. 8. It is not un-American for me to disagree with authority or to share my personal opinion. And 9. The government works for me. I do not answer to them, they answer to me. Please make it your obligation to vote in the Pennsylvania primary on Tuesday, April 24th. For For more information on the Lehighton 912, log on to lehighton912.org. Now, back to this evening's public service programming on Magic 105.5 WMGH. This evening's broadcast is being brought to you by the Lehighton 912. Their mission is to awaken as many Americans as possible to the slow deterioration of their constitutional liberties that have occurred over the past 100 years. The 912 has 12 core values: honesty, reverence, hope, thrift, humility, charity, sincerity, moderation, hard work, courage, personal responsibility, and gratitude. Please make it your obligation to vote in the Pennsylvania primary on Tuesday, April 24th. For more information on the Lehighton 912, log on to www.lehighton912.org. Now, back to this evening's public service program on Magic 105.5 WMGH.
And welcome back. We're going to take the last few callers for this evening, and then each candidate is going to go around and have a closing statement here on Magic. We are so very proud and privileged to have all of the candidates here this evening. Senator incumbent Dave Argel, Republican candidate Brian Rich, and also Democratic candidate Tim Sipe for the 29th Senatorial District here in Pennsylvania. All right, we're going to go to the phone lines. We've got... this is going to actually, Brian, this is going to you, and this caller is in Tamaqua. Good evening, you're on the air.
This question is for Brian Rich.
Okay.
I'd like to know why in Oranda-Schuylkill County you see a Brian Rich sign, an election sign, and right behind it you see a posted sign that Brian Rich won't let the hunters or the trappers or the fishermen step on his ground.
Well, Kerry, I guess private property is a right of Americans. I think we all have property that, if we own it, it's ours. It's sacred to the owner of that property.
And I don't know, Senator Argel, or if Tim, if you have any other comments on that. That was pretty cut and dry. Okay. We're going to go now to Orwigsburg. Nope, we're going to go back to, I believe, Pottsville. We're going to go to Pottsville now, and this is a question for all three candidates, and now we are going to allow Tim to take this one first. All right, good evening, Pottsville. You're on the air.
This is Tamaqua.
I'm so sorry, Tamaqua. You're on the air.
Hi, I have two questions, actually, if I may.
Okay.
My first question is for all three candidates. It would be, with the deficit in the United States and the giant deficit in Pennsylvania, would any of the candidates, if elected or re-elected, would they be willing to either cut their pension, drop their pension, or would they be willing to voluntarily drop their annual salary and also ask their staff to voluntarily drop their annual salary to try and help fix the deficit in Pennsylvania? And if I may, my second question would be about education and the cuts that are happening across the state. Wouldn't it be a better idea to cut some administrator salaries instead of cutting 5 secretaries, 6 teachers, instead of cutting physical education, art programs?
All right, I wasn't sure if he was done. I'm so sorry. All right, Tim, we're going to start with you. Let's talk salary first.
Okay, well, I'm not an independently wealthy man. I'm not a millionaire or anything like that. When I ran my offices, I certainly did all I could to maintain a level of humility and certainly a level of respect for the taxpayers' dollars. I personally carried things back and forth to Harrisburg. My day was get up in the morning, meet a staffer in the parking lot on my way down to Harrisburg to the Capitol, drop off legislative material, pick things up that had to go back to my district office, personally drop that off to save postage. When I opened up my office, I went down to DGS, to their surplus area, and picked out desks and chairs and conference tables and things like that. I think I outfitted my Pottsville office for, I don't know, with $10, $20 items. I mean, as frugal as I possibly could have been. I mean, we moved the stuff ourselves up 3 floors, as a matter of fact. As far as the administrators and things that school districts can be doing, I commend Blue Mountain Blue Mountain School District for their energy program. We should be doing things like that. Blue Mountain was able to save $750,000 that I know of on an energy initiative that they put forth to try and reduce their energy costs through starting heating systems up in succession and shutting them down in succession and doing things with the lights and high efficiency appliances and so forth. So I think that there are ways to save for our school districts, and certainly energy costs are a big part of that. At Penn State, they put in a solar program at the Schuylkill campus. They run all the apartments in one section of the campus off of solar power, and when the students are off on break, that solar power feeds back into the grid to supply energy to the providers. So there's things like that we just have to start doing.
All right, Brian?
Well, Tim didn't exactly answer the question. The question was whether or not they would be interested in sacrificing their current defined pension benefits. The entire private sector out there has a 401k. I believe it's incumbent upon our legislators to have 401ks as well. That means that they have to be responsible for their own finances. Excuse me. The salary of a state legislator is not even commiserate with the private sector. $100,000 or nearly $100,000 a year in annual pay certainly would afford him the opportunity to contribute to his own 401k and not to have a legacy cost that is going to be bared by the balance of the taxpayers. So I think I'm anxious to hear how Dave would like to address this as well.
Well, anxious to address it. I continue to turn the COLA back every month, and contrary to the nasty mailings that you've been sending out, that has no impact on my pension whatsoever. It doesn't increase it in any way, no matter what you say. I have reduced voluntarily my staff through attrition. That saves $250,000 a year when we took a 25% cut. I took a pay cut to leave the House of Representatives to come to the Senate. With 2 kids in college, that wasn't easy, but it was the right thing to do.
But then
we've also. Would you let me answer the question, please? I didn't interrupt you.
Well, I'm going to interrupt you. How about when you ran for against Tim Holden? How about when you ran against Tim Holden? You were looking for a pay increase, I believe.
And we left it up to the voters, and they decided that I should stay as their state senator, and that was fine by me. In addition, in Tamaqua, we share an office with Representative Knowles. In Slatington, I share an office with Representative Horhart. In Pottsville, where we used to have 2 different state offices, we now have 1 because I share an office with Representative Tobash. I believe that I have shown time and time again through my chairmanship of the committee with the Cost-Cutting Commission, we've identified over $400 million, and so I've been willing to lead by example, to make the hard choices, and I'll continue to do that.
All right, gentlemen, we're coming up to the end of this evening's broadcast, and we do again want to thank the Lehighton 912 for making this evening possible so that we could bring it to you, the voter. And again, I do encourage you to go out. If you are a registered Republican or Democrat, please go out and vote. The polls will be open Tuesday morning bright and early, and again, it is your right and your obligation. Closing statements, gentlemen, are just going to be about 30 seconds because we're up against the clock. And Tim, we're going to start with you.
Thank you, Carrie. Many people have asked me when I got to Harrisburg, they said, how would somebody like you with no political experience be able to get things done? And I told them it's through my training, building relationships. I personally build a lot of personal relationships with legislators down there. One such relationship with then Senator Rhodes, God rest his soul. Because this Democrat and that Republican came together, we were able to pass property tax legislation out of the House of Representatives for the first time in I don't know how long, and no property tax legislation has passed since. So for me, I focus on this job, building relationships with other people, making sure that there's a level of respect and trust between the people that you're working with and for. And when I do this job, this is the only job I have. I'm a legislator, and I don't have any other outside interest. This is my job, working for the people.
Great. Brian?
Well, despite what Dave says, Dave then promptly ran for, after he was appointed to Jim's seat, Dave promptly then ran for U.S. Congress to improve his position. 27 years of Dave Argel as our state rep or our state senator, we've accomplished very little. We've gone backwards as a state. 47th in job growth, 50th in business climate. We have an unfunded pension burden that's untenable. Dave's admitted that vote was wrong. We need to make the hard changes. I'm the type of leader that's willing to go to Harrisburg and tackle the difficult problems. The evasiveness of both these gentlemen as it relates to reforming the pension system is telling. That's the problem we have in Pennsylvania, that these guys aren't prepared to do the difficult things. I'm not taking a pension, and I will fight to reform the pension system in Pennsylvania. Thank you.
And Senator Argel?
There are some important issues in this campaign. Jobs and economic development, blight, the need to eliminate the school district property tax reform. I think people have heard tonight we have some agreements and we have some disagreements. I certainly don't believe that eliminating the school district property tax is poppycock, as Brian has indicated. Every single meeting that I've gone to for the last couple of years, people have begged me to do something to eliminate that hated tax. And so all that I can do throughout all the clutter, I've been very clear with my message. I don't believe that this seat should be for sale to the corporation that can pump the most money into the nastiest TV ads. I believe that this is a sacred trust. It's a trust that I have taken very seriously for the last 3 years, and certainly I would very much ask the voters of this district for the opportunity for a second term.
Well, gentlemen, it's straight up 8 o'clock here on Magic 105.5, and I want to thank you again, Senator Argel, Brian Rich, and Tim Slife for being a part of this, our public service program that you heard live here on Magic. Again, a big thank you to the Lehighton 912 for all of their support. We will now return to regular programming. Have a good evening.
All right.
This has been a paid public service program brought to you by the Lehighton 912. The views and opinions that were expressed during this panel do not reflect those of the ownership, management, and staff of Magic 105.5 WMGH. Thanks for listening.